Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And we are still in our 100 days of DevOps. We have been looking at Azure for the past about 3 to 4 days. And yesterday we got introduced to resource groups, resource manager. That I had to explain that everything created on Azure goes through the resource manager, or it is done or carried out by the resource manager. We also defined what a resource is, which is an instance of a service. We looked at resource groups and all, where we created a resource group, and we rushed through by creating a virtual machine instance in that resource group, and we saw all of that. So if you're seeing this channel for the first time, I'm trying to cover DevOps in about 100 days. And I think this should be day 53 or 54 of our journey. We've gone past halfway toward in our journey, and we started from the basic to fundamental, which is Linux. We graduated to networking, to Git, to containerization, and we are currently in cloud and all of that. So I welcome you all to today's video. There was something I forgot to do yesterday, which is to remember we created a virtual machine, a Windows virtual machine, and the cost was over about $300. And I said when we were done, I was going to delete that virtual machine. So I deleted the virtual machine, but I didn't show you how to delete the virtual machine or to delete the resource group. So I'll quickly do that now. Yesterday when we created the virtual machine, it created a network watcher resource group. And I told you what it does. It basically watches it's like network that watches your virtual machine or watches anything that has to do with network, takes that resource and sends it to the Azure monitor where you can use to analyze and diagnose any issues with whatever resource that you're currently having issues with. So that's another um a video for another day where we look at monitoring and all of that. So how do you delete a resource? You can either delete a resource, one after the other, or if you're not using that resource group again, you delete the resource group. So if you delete a resource group, everything in that resource group also gets deleted with it. I can decide that okay, I want to delete this particular resource, and I'll just click on it, and when it shows me, it takes me to the interface of the resource. It will show me an option to delete. Show me an option to delete the resource. So show me an option. Okay, let me go back. Okay, this one doesn't have that option, but most likely in all of the other resources, you will see delete resource. So we can just delete the resource group. When we delete the resource group, everything in this resource group gets deleted. So you copy the resource group name, you put it here. There are some times that if you have a virtual machine in this resource and all of that, it will bring a checkbox down here where you can check if you want to delete every other thing associated with the resource group. So you check that box and then you delete. So basically, that's how you delete a resource group. You can delete the resources from the resource group manually, or you delete the resource group as a whole, and then every other thing is deleted from that resource group. So that's aside, let's go to the business of today. What we are going to do today is we are going to, I'm introducing us to creating virtual machines. So we are going to create a virtual machine, or we're going to create virtual machines, and I'll show you how it is done. And yeah, yesterday we rushed through it. However, today we'll take our time and I'll try to explain a few things about that. So first off, we go to virtual machine. This time around, I won't be creating, no, we've not created a resource group, we've deleted that resource group, but I won't be creating a resource group using the resource group um, service. I'll show you there's another way for you to create a resource group. So we'll go to the virtual machine, and there are no virtual machines here. We're going to create two virtual machines. I'll show you how to create a Windows virtual machine. I'll also show you how to create a Linux virtual machine. So you're going to click on create. You come here, you can see virtual machine, you can see virtual machine skill sets and all of that. What we are concerned with is we are concerned with creating a virtual machine. Basically, what a virtual machine skill set does is that if you have a group of virtual machine that does the same thing, say you have a single Jenkins server, and then traffic is going through that Jenkins server, it would um at some point the Jenkins server will be overloaded. So, but now you want to reduce the load. You can create a virtual machine skill set where you have different virtual machines come together and become like different virtual machines will have the Jenkins server installed on them and they'll be placed behind a load balancer. So traffic is distributed amongst those virtual machines. So instead of manually going to create one virtual machine per time and say you want to create like five virtual machines, you can just use a virtual machine skill set and then just create five virtual machines at the same time, install everything and all of that. So basically that's what um virtual machine skill set is. In AWS, it's called auto scaling. So I think auto scaling group or thereabouts. Yeah. So, but what we are concerned about today is virtual machine. So click on virtual machine. The first one we'll create is a Windows virtual machine, while the second we're going to create is a Linux virtual machine. So now we're going to take our time and go through the plane of creation. So I explained this yesterday. Subscription, basically, if you use the free subscription, you're going to you see that selected, so you can click on it. If you have more than one subscription, if you click the drop down, you'll see all the subscription. And then resource group. When I click the drop down, I can see that I have no resource group. So you can just easily create one here. So you can create one from this place. So I'll do 100 days of, of DevOps. So we are going to, this is the resource group we are going to be using for the rest of this particular series, for the rest of this journey. So when I click on OK, it creates that resource group and it's showing you that it's new. So that's why there's a new in front of it. Virtual machine name, we can do Windows Windows VM. So let's see if that name is available. Okay, the Windows VM is available. The region I explained I explained region yesterday, and I explained the best way to pick a region. So you pick a region that if you're for test purpose, it is best you pick a region that is close to your present location. In a production environment, you have to pick a region that is close to your target customers. So that's the difference. So for this particular phase or this for this particular video, I will be in a region that is close to my location, which is West Europe. So for availability options, now when you click on drop down, you're clicking on basically let's even start with what is availability. Availability just means that how often or how long your virtual machine is ready to receive requests. Basically, it's self-explanatory. How long is this machine available for? That's you're trying to make sure that um you're trying to reduce the number of downtime. So you don't want any downtime. So that is where availability options come to play. And you see, Azure refers a blah 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 and all of that stuff. You can read all of that. So now we have four options for availability, right? And I talked about availability zones, yes, on the first day, rather. Talked about availability zones on the first day. So we have no infrastructure redundancy required. That means you just want one VM and one VM alone. You're not having any backups or any backup VM or any whatever. So now the next option you have is availability zone. And I mentioned what availability zone is. So when I click on availability zone, you'll see on the on this drop down, you see zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. For those that might not remember, let me take availability zone again. So um, this is the way I describe this. I said this is the whole world, and then these are different regions, right? And then we said, okay, we picked out US. We picked out the US region. Let's say all of this is the United States. So we picked out United States as a region. So now we now said, okay, um, This United States now is divided into two parts. We'll say this is East US, this is West US, and this is East US. This is East US. So now in East US, we now say, okay, in East US, we now say, okay, we want to have more than one data center. So like I explained, availability zones are basically data centers. It is there for fault tolerance, it is there for redundancy, it is there for backup. So you have three, some availability, some regions have two data centers, some have three, but most time we have three availability zones in a region and they are sparsely separated, right? You can have one in maybe Texas, you can have one in another state, just three states within the in different states in the East US. So I tell you that, the chances of a region going down is very slim because you already have three availability zones there. So all three availability zones cannot possibly go down at the same time. Only on rare occasions will a region completely go down. And even if the East US should go down, there's something we call region peer. East US and West US are region peer. And what are region peer? You can duplicate what is in East US, you can duplicate it on West US. So you have the same thing in East US on West US. So that is what we call region peer. So even if a region goes down, even if the East US goes down, and you've paired both regions together, or you are working with a region peer, you your data, your information is still intact because West US is still up, and you can just retrieve those information from West US. Since your primary region is East US and that is down, you can easily retrieve the information from the West US. So that is availability zones. They're just nothing but data centers in a region. So I hope that is clear. Sorry about that. So that's for availability zone. Then virtual machine skill set, I already explained that. Then we have availability set. So the set automatically distributes your VM across multiple fault domains. So now if we read that, something strikes us, which is fault domains. So what are fault domains? To understand fault domains, we first need to know what availability set is. So I have the documentation here. So an availability set is a set of logical groups of VMs that reduces the chance of correlated failures, bringing down related VMs at the same time. And you can read through all of this. Basically, it's still similar to availability zone. It's just basically having like several groups of VM that are available. Now, what I actually want to explain here is how availability sets works. So now you have under availability sets, fault domain was mentioned, but I cannot explain fault domain without explaining update domain. Now, I won't take the time to start reading all of these. I will just go ahead and explain this straight for you. Fault domains are when you put your VMs in different racks in a data center. So let's say you have six VMs. We have VM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We now share it into different racks. So a single rack in a data center is called a fault domain. So a fault domain defines a group of virtual machines that share a common power supply, network, and switch. So these VMs on fault domain 0, they share the same power supply, they share the same network and all of that. So you have them put in a single rack. So one single rack in a data center is called a fault domain. So now we have three fault domains. So from what I have in this diagram, we have three fault domains because now we have three racks. Now I understand. I hope you understand what a fault domain means. With the knowledge of the fault domain, I can now go ahead and explain update domain. So now update domain is how do I explain it now? What Azure does from time to time is they there might be new updates on all of these VMs. Since you know that basically all you're doing is requesting for a VM, or everything that you're requesting on as a virtual resource is actually on a physical resource or a physical server or a physical whatever you want to call it. It is physical in those data centers. So there are times where they might need to update patches and all of that. Now, when you have six VMs, how does update domain work? Whenever Azure wants to update the VMs, they don't update everything at once. So when they want to update, they might pick one and two instead of updating one and four, because one and four are on the same fault domain. You cannot have if you have two VMs on a fault domain, you cannot have updates on the two VMs at the same time because we don't want a total downtime of a fault domain. A fault domain you have to ensure that you don't have complete downtime on a fault domain. So what they do is that we update one VM at a time. So they update VM1 and VM2. After that, they update VM3 and VM4. After that, they update VM5 and VM6. So update is done one at a time. So that is what update domain majorly means. So I hope I've been able to explain the difference between I've, I've been able to explain what fault domain means, what update domain means. It's not they are just big words. So you can see you can have up to three fault domain and 20 update domains. So this is fault domain one, two, three. So the highest number of fault domains you can have is three fault domains, and then you can have 20 update domains. What is meant by 20 update domains is that the 20 in these three racks, you share like you share your VMs amongst it, no matter the highest number of VMs you can have in an update domain is 20. So you share your 20 VMs among all of these three fault domains, and then I said Amazon, Azure would update it from time to time. So that is what a fault domain means. That is what an update domain means. You can go to the documentation and then you can read more on it and understand how everything works. So I'll go back to our creation. So I'm not going to choose an availability zone. I'll just choose no infrastructure since we are not going to use this virtual machine for any workload. So, and one thing I need to also note is that some of these places you will see there's an asterisk, red asterisk. Anyone you see red asterisk is you must put in a value or you must pick an option there. The ones that don't have red asterisk like availability option, security type, VM architecture, private adjust port, they are not necessary. So I just wanted to mention that. Now, security type, we can leave it as such. You can say, okay, standard, no much security. Then you can have trusted launch, blah blah blah, and basically it's just showing you the level of security that you have installed on your virtual machine. Now, the image is just like what operating system do you want to what version of the operating system do you want to actually use? So since we are using a Windows operating system, I'll click a drop down and I want to use Windows Server 2019. So I'll click on select all image. So we'll go to the marketplace where you can see different types of images that you can actually choose from. You can see the Windows Server, you can see normal Windows 11, Windows 10, SQL Server, Ubuntu, Red Hat, Debian. You can have there are so many types of operating system images that are available for you to use. So I want the Windows Server. I'm going to select I'm going to look for Windows 2019 or 2022. Okay, let me use 2022. So let me use 2022 data center. Yes, so we'll use this image, the one with Gen 2. We're using Gen 2, not Generation 1. So Windows Server 2022 data center x64 Gen 2. So I'll select on that and it's going to load. Okay, let's just give it some. time. And that's for image. VM architecture, you can leave it as x64 and run with Azure Spot instance. So now, what is Spot discount? There's something called Azure Spot instance. Because of the way Azure is made or cloud in general, there might be some situations where not all the resources in a server will be utilized. So what Azure does is that they will give you, they would allow you to request for a server at a discounted rate, o- provided that that server you are not really, you don't have okay, the server can be shut down at any time, so you don't really have control about over the server. So you get the server for a discounted price. You get it for a discounted price, but you don't have total control over the server. The server can be shut down at any time. Now you can see it eviction type, capacity only. Your VM will be evicted when Azure exceeds capacity. So once Azure exceeds the capacity for that particular server, your VM will be evicted. Now, another one is price or capacity. Once somebody offers a higher price than your virtual machine, the virtual machine will be evicted. Now, eviction policy. Once they want to evict your VM, do you want them to stop and deallocate it, or you want them to delete the VM totally? So that is what Azure Spot discount means. You get the VM. It is the same VM, it is the same Windows VM. The only difference is that you are you are literally, well, let's say you're literally at the mercy of Azure because they can shut down your VM at any time. So if you are doing maybe a test or maybe just want something quick that you don't really want so much fun and you're never going to be using it most of the time, you can explore this option. So I'm not going to do that, right? So size, you can choose a VM with two CPUs, two virtual CPUs, 8 gig memory, and all of that. And then this is your amount, the amount that you'll be charged for the VM alone, $151.11 per month for this particular virtual machine. And as you can see on my right hand side, over here, it is being updated so you can see everything that you're actually doing. So, do you want hibernation? No, we don't need that. So, we need add administrator account, username. Um, I'll use this and then I'll put a password that fulfills the password requirement and I will retype the password. Okay, so inbound points, don't really bother yourself about that. Now, what are the ways you can connect to this VM? For Windows VM, you can either use, most times you use RDP, you can use HTTPS also to connect to it. So most often when you're dealing with Windows VM, use RDP. RDP is remote desktop. And you can also use HTTPS to connect to this particular VM. So we're choosing RDP and HTTPS. If you want RDP alone, you go with RDP, and we don't need licensing. Then we can go next. You'll see the disk. What type of disk do you want? Do you want premium SSD? If you go down, there are different premium SSD, standard SSD, standard HDD, and all of that. All of this informs the price. All of this informs the price. So if I choose standard SSD, the price will be different from premium, SSD and all of that. So I'm not going to edit anything here. Then for the networking, I will not edit anything on the networking. We'll still come back to this, but that will be maybe tomorrow. Then for management, I'll just leave everything as they are, and then I'll go to review and create. I'll go to review and create. So Azure would do a validation just like the way they did yesterday. They will do a validation check, and then once you pass that check, your virtual machine will be created in that resource group. So once this is created, we'll go and create our Linux virtual machine. So we're going to do that of Linux immediately after this has been created, and then would go into boot, and then we'll see one or two things, how to set it up, how to, and yeah, we'll just basically explore everything about virtual machine. So validation has been passed according to what I have here. So I will just, and my total bill is $154.76 per month. So I'm going to create, I'll now go ahead and create the virtual machine. And I'll also show how to connect to the virtual machine, and how to do one or two things in the virtual machine. So now it's already been deployed. So while this is still deploying, we'll go to our home page so that we don't waste any time. We'll go to our home, and then we'll create our Linux virtual machine. We'll create another virtual machine. So we'll create another one. So now when I click on drop down, I'm seeing 100 days of DevOps because I created it while creating the first virtual machine. So I'll choose that. Um, I'll just do Ubuntu, my, okay, my Ubuntu VM, okay, and I'll still choose West Europe. Same thing, I will not choose any availability. It's just basically the same thing. So now I'm going to use Ubuntu. I'll use Ubuntu Server x64 Gen 2. Just the same way we use Windows Server x64 Gen 2. We'll be using Ubuntu Server x64 Gen 2. And um, I'll go to, okay, so our VM has been created from the notification I have here. So I would go to, I'll just use this as the default. We can see all sizes though. We can come here, we can see all the sizes. Now, how do you know the size of VM to choose? Now, different size, informs um, different requests, prompts the size we are going to use. We have different classes. We have D series version 7, version 6, version 4. We have the E series, we have the F series, we have the L series. For you to know, if you want to know so much about all these types of virtual machine, you can search for virtual machine series. There's the B series, there's the D series, there's the E family, there's the F family. All these machines, they have different purpose. For example, if you want a general purpose virtual machine, you use the D series, which is what I've chosen for both the Linux and the Windows. This is just for test portable virtual machines. It's just economical when you just want to quickly do something. It's not recommended for any workload. So it's just for dev, for test. Then these are memory optimized virtual machines that you need in memory, something like maybe you want to install tools like Redis and all of that. You can use the E series. For F series is compute optimized. That means if you want any virtual machine that is compute, if you're going to run any application that is compute demanding, like virtual CPUs, you need a high number of virtual CPUs, you can use the F series. And on the right, you will see their starting price. You see their starting price. So all of this would inform the kind of virtual machine type you use. This is for high performance computing. This storage optimized. If you want a virtual machine for storage, you can use the L family, and you can see the starting price for it. So you can see everything here. Just type virtual machine series, and it will show you everything you need. So I'm going to go with the default that was given to me. So I'm choosing two CPUs, 8 gig RAM, and so I'll select that. And obviously for Linux, you are going to um you access the VM using either SSH or password. We are going to use SSH public key to access our VM. And the username that has been given to us is Azure user. Let me see if I can change that. I'm going to use the same user that I used at that other time. So let's give the name of our SSH public key, the tracks public public key. So that's the name of public key. So it is this public key I will use to SSH into the VM. And as you can see, inbound port SSH is opened. So now the disk and everything is basically the same. I'll just go to review and create. So Azure will review everything that I have chosen, and then once it passes validation, we create our Linux virtual machine. So once this is done, while we are waiting, okay, validation has been passed. That was quite fast, and we can see our bill is $87.60. Now you might be wondering, why are the bills different? There are so many factors that you know um, that informs the bill that we are going to that we incur. First off, Windows VM is higher because Windows Server has a graphical user interface. Basically, it has a GUI, while Linux does not have a GUI. It's just CLI straightforward, right? So the fact that it doesn't even have a GUI is one reason why Linux VM will always be cheaper than Windows VM and some other things. So we are going to download the private key. Download it as a file. This is what you are going to use to have access to um, our virtual machine. So as I was saying, um, apart from that, the region that we also place our VM also matters. Region we place our VM also matters. The price of this same virtual machine in East US will not be the same price of the virtual machine in maybe South Africa or West Europe. So there are so many things. Your disk type also. You remember I changed it from premium SSD to standard SSD. All of these are factors that contribute to the pricing of your virtual machine. So while this is being created, let's go to resource. So I'm going to go to our Windows virtual machine. So how do we connect to our Windows virtual machine? So this is the interface of, okay, this has also been created. So this is the interface of um our virtual machine. You can see the resource group it is put into, the status it is running. The location is West Europe, subscription ID. You can see the operating system. You can see the size, you can see the public IP address, and all of that. You can still come down here to get more information about this virtual machine. So now, how then do we connect to a Windows virtual machine? You come to connect and you click on. There are two ways you can connect. You can do the normal connection using RDP, or you can connect via Bastion. I've not said anything about Bastion. We've not installed Bastion, but we'll just do the normal connect. So what we do is that we copy okay, we don't need to copy. Yeah, we can copy it in case it's needed. So what we do is we download the RDP file. So I want to keep it. So I open. That's a remote desktop file. So it is going to ask you to connect to this virtual machine, and it will ask for the password. So remember the password that we set when we were creating our virtual machine. So I click on OK and yes. So now we'll be connected to our virtual machine. So now we have a Windows server, and this is um, coming up. It will do all the settings. Let me minimize this. I can minimize it. And while it is setting up, so it's preparing the settings and all of that. So let me make this much bigger. So we have our Windows server, and I click on yes. Okay, so we have our Windows server. So what can we do on this server? If you're a Windows administrator, you can, do so many things. What we're going to do now is that I wouldn't do so much on this because I work more with Linux than with Windows. But at least I know how to set up, I know how to turn this server into a web server, and that's what we are going to do. This is just an ordinary server. We're going to turn this server into a web server. And how do we do that? We can configure this local server. So you click on configure local server, um, manage, add roles and features. Okay, so it is still coming up. So add rows and figures and features. So you can configure this server to be maybe a web server or a file server, whatever way you want to just the way you configure your Linux to be a web server and all of that. So just click on next, and we are going to look for web server. So we'll pick on web server. So we are configuring this server to be a web server. You click on add features, and you see you can make it a DHCP server or a DNS server or an Active Directory server, you know, whatever type of service you want to make this window to be. You can even configure this Windows to be an Hyper-V, which is an hypervisor. So we click on web server and next. I'm just going to accept the default. There will be one or two other settings that you would need to do over here, but I wouldn't spend so much time doing that. I'm just going to accept the default and next and next. So I'll click on install. So I'm setting up this server to be a Windows server. So it will take a while, and um, installation will start. And once it is completed, we are going to confirm that this window server is indeed a Windows server. Let me minimize this, and while this is okay, let me minimize this. I should be doing it here. Okay, let me go back to this, and okay, so as not to confuse us, I would take it one step at a time so that we don't get confused, because while this is working, I wanted to go and start setting up the Linux, but it will just take a few seconds, and the Windows server will be set up. We'll configure the server to be a web server, and then we'll confirm that it is a web server. And once that is done, we'll move to our Linux server. So in a few seconds, it's supposed to be done. So Windows server for the web server for Windows is called IIS. I've forgotten the full meaning, but that is what it is called, IIS. Why for Linux it is Nginx. So we are going to configure both the Windows and the Linux server to be web servers, and then we'll see how we can access them. So just a couple of seconds more, and the server will be configured as a web server, and then we'll access it. And I'll show you how to know if a Windows server has been configured to be a web server. So the installation is almost complete. It should be done any moment from now. I'm supposed to get a finished installation any moment from now. So let's just hold on a few seconds. So let me close it. Okay, installation succeeded on Windows VM. Okay, it has even been done. I didn't see that. So close. So now we already have IIS. So we can go into this, and then so how do we confirm that the server is indeed a Windows server? Then you go to our browser, and we go to our browser and start without your data, confirm and continue. Continue without this and that. So to know if your server has been configured to be a web server, just type localhost. Just type localhost And when you click on enter, it brings this. So if you see this whenever you type localhost, it means the server has been configured to be a Windows server, a web server rather. So I'm going to close this, and then you can just, if you're a Windows administrator, you can actually just play around with it. Let me see. IS. So I want to configure this server to be okay. So you come to IIS manager. Good. So you can, if you want to add pages, you come here and you can come sites under sites. So default website. So if you want to add more static web pages, you can just come to the site and then add more. So what we have currently is the default website, which is the one that we accessed using the local host. You can add more sites and then you can, do a whole lot of administrative activities on this. So um, now we have our Windows server configured as a web server. Now let's see if we can access this Windows server from my main laptop. So let me do, obviously it's web servers is on port 80. So when I do, I'll copy the public IP, the public IP, I'll copy that. And when I paste it and I do port 80, so you notice that it is not going. It is not going. And this is a networking issue which we are going to address tomorrow. So that is that about the Windows server. Now let's go. At least we've seen how to set up a Windows server. We've seen how to connect to a Windows server. So now let's go back to our home page. Go to virtual machines. And we have our Ubuntu virtual machine. When I click on it, I close this. Okay, so it's basically like the same thing that we saw when we opened the Windows virtual machine. So now this is the public IP address. How then do we connect to our Linux virtual machine? There are different ways. You can use the Azure Cloud Shell to connect, but this is not a recommended way for us to connect to it. So we're going to use Mobile XDEM just the same way we did with our local virtual machine, and we'll wait for this to load up. And you click on session. We are connecting using SSH because that was what we actually chose. Then we put our, but remember we didn't create a password. We are supposed to connect with SSH. We didn't use a normal username and password to connect. We are going to use SSH, and then we downloaded a public key. So how then do we log in? We are going to use that public key to SSH into this VM. How do we do that? We click on advanced SSH settings, and then you choose use private key, and you go and pick that public key that's the pem file that you downloaded, and then you click on OK. So it will now ask you for accept. So you can see now that we have been able to access the Linux virtual machine. I type my username and I don't need to give a password to authenticate because it is using the public key. So now we have access to our Linux virtual machine. So when I do ls, there is nothing there. ls-al. So nothing has been set up on this virtual machine. So first thing you want to do is sudo apt update, just the same way we always do. whenever when we first set up our Ubuntu server the other time, the first thing we did was we did sudo apt update, and we've done that so many times. It basically just updates the repository. If there are new patches that needs to be updated, you update it and make sure that your virtual machine is up to date. So we are going to configure this. We are going to install Nginx on this virtual machine. So we'll go and then we'll click on um, install setup. We're going to set up Nginx on Ubuntu server. Okay, so basically it is just okay. From what I have here, just click on this. We've already done apt updates, so the next thing is just to um do sudo apt install nginx -y. So I'll come back here and I'll just copy that command and then I'll run it. It's going to install Nginx. So this is the virtual machine we are going to be using, or we are going to be working with going forward. So like I said, we are not going to be using our local. You can still use it if you want to. You can still use it if you're not able to create. If you're stuck with creating a virtual machine on the cloud, you can still use your local virtual box or VMware workstation, so you can still use it. But I would really love if you follow exactly what I'm doing and you're able to create your a virtual machine on Azure and then follow along. So if you are familiar with AWS, you can also use AWS to follow along. So now Nginx has been installed, has been set up on this virtual machine. So now we've configured both the Windows server and the Ubuntu server to be a web server. So let me see if we can also access Nginx. So I'm going to copy the public IP address and I'll paste it and I'll do port 80. So you can see that we are not able to also access the Nginx from our local browser. So why is that? This is something that we are going to cover tomorrow. There's a reason why we are not able to have access to our Nginx server as well as our IIS as the case may be. Yes, so we're not able to connect to both the Windows and the Linux server from our um, personal computer. And that is what we are going to do tomorrow. So that will be all for today. I really hope that you've been able to gain a good knowledge of how to create virtual machines. So I've taken my time to create both a Windows server and an Ubuntu server. So now I'm supposed to delete the Windows server since we will not be using it. However, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, since we said we want to, I need to explain why we are not able to access or why we are not able to get through to them from our local PC. So what I'll do is that I'll just shut them down. So you can also so instead of deleting, I'll shut them down. You want to stop all selected? Yes. So so that I don't incur any cost has been ended. Okay. So that I don't incur any costs pending the next recording, it is best to shut them down. If you're not making use of the virtual machine, the best thing is to shut them down because these are one of the things that can actually, make you incur a lot of cost. If you don't shut down a virtual machine that you're not using, you're going to, incur cost by the time you come back. So only the Ubuntu server has been stopped. The Windows server is yet to be stopped. So if I come here, you can see that I have no connection to it again. So I'll close this. Okay, so I think my Windows server has also been shut down. Good. So both of them status, you can see status is stopped. They are located. So that'll be all today. If you've enjoyed this video, please do well to like the video. You can share it to anyone who is struggling to create virtual machines um on Azure, or anyone who wants to learn about Azure and who wants to learn about DevOps rather from scratch. So you can also feel free to subscribe to my channel. If as at this point you're yet to subscribe to my channel, I feel like it's something that you really need to do. Yes, you really need to subscribe to the channel, and not just subscribe, turn on your notification bell so that you get notified when I post the next video. So I'll see you again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the day. Cheers.